What's going on, everyone? It's Bales, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going through who I believe are the must-have rookies for your AFL Fantasy side for 2024. We had a game of footy last night, which was fantastic. Able to watch a couple of rookies, which we will talk about in this video, along with all the other rookies to keep an eye on for the rest of the opening round, and then who you should be putting in your side next week. But always, as always, we do before the video. If you are enjoying the content around here, please smash a like on the video. Last two videos, you guys have absolutely killed it. We've had over 200 likes on the team reveal. We're closing on 100 likes on the must-have value players. That's fantastic, the support you guys have shown over the past week and pre-season for that matter. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We again, smashed subscribers as well. We are closing in on that 2,000 milestone that I've been wanting to hit. So yeah, if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you do get involved as well. Also, make sure you go and follow me on TikTok at BalesDT. Obviously, I want to be streaming on there along with on YouTube for the watch songs in the season. So if you haven't already, follow me at BalesDT at TikTok so we can hit 1,000. And yeah, so let's get stuck into who I believe the must-have rookies. So we'll get the screen up as we always do, as the camera wobbles a little bit there, and we'll get the stats center up, and here we go. So we'll talk about the defenders first and obviously go through positions. So we'll start off in defense. I'll probably go by price order, and then I'll tell you who you should be having and who you should be considering. So Dan Curtin's at the top of the list here. Unfortunately, as a Crows fan, I don't think he's going to be there in round one. He's dealt with a bit of knee soreness throughout the preseason. That is one thing, but I think the Crows do want to ease him into the action. I thought at the start of preseason he was going to be there for us, and he was obviously on a lot of our benches. Actually, I wonder what his ownership will actually currently be now. So that's currently sitting at still just under 34%. So yeah, a lot of people they're probably waiting to see if he gets named next week. But I think that you're going to be having to look for another plan. So I don't see him being there. Same with Conor O'Sullivan. I don't see him being there. A few people being keen on him and to see how he goes. I think Geelong have got a good player there. I don't think we're going to see him in round one. Josh Gibcus is the first rookie of relevance that we're going to talk about here. So Josh Gibcus, obviously, he's playing tomorrow against Gold Coast in obviously the afternoon game. The way I look at it with these opening round rookies is if they pop a big score, and for defenders, it's probably a 60 plus. I think you've got to pick him. So we'll talk about a guy that's down the list in Blake Howes, who had a good score last night. But Josh Gibcus, got to watch him tomorrow. If he goes 60 plus, I think it's probably worthwhile bringing him in, because if you guys don't know, obviously the players playing an opening round, they get a double price rise post round one. So essentially what they'll do is it's like they've played 2 weeks. Whatever. So Gibcus's break even is, what is it up here? So 28, right? Let's say he gets a 60. He'll go up like that. He won't go up in the game. It'll still be 256k starting price, but post round one, it'll be like he's had 2 weeks worth of price rise. So his break even, if he gets a 60, will probably drop to around the 10 mark or a little bit less. If he gets another 50, he's going to go up as if he's outscored that 2 weeks in a row. So yeah, Gibcus for me, if he has a good game, I think he would be worthwhile putting on the bench just to get that instant cash flow, because a lot of rookies that we don't have, like a Dan Curtin if he played, or someone, or even Ari Schoenmaker, if we start them, they're only going to get the 1 price rise, whereas for the other guys, you're going to get 2. So I think that's going to be quite valuable to pick those guys on your bench. Zach Reed's another one. A little bit similar to Gibcus. And I probably should have said with Gibcus as well, he's going to be a low scorer. He's not going to score very highly. And I think Reed's going to be the same. They are key defenders. I don't see them being particularly high scorers. They might pop a 60 every now and again to maybe just keep the cash flow going, but I don't expect there to be much. So Reed, just over 15%. How many people are on Gibcus actually? Yeah, about the same, about 15%. That could change as well if he has a big game. At the moment, I've got a couple of 200k guys who I will talk about that I've got on my bench currently. But as I said, if Gibcus pops out a 60 plus, I'll probably pivot to him and try and find that 56k to put him on the bench. Bodie Uland is another. I skipped over a couple. Ocean Mullen, I don't think he's going to play. He sort of looks like he's right on the fringe of that Geelong best 22. He came on in the second half last week in their pre-season game. Again, he could be a downgrade target later in the year. I just don't see him being the next year. But again, just someone to keep an eye on if he is there next week. Riley Hardiman as well, North. I think he'll be a downgrade target potentially later on in the year. He won't start with Fisher, McKercher, and Shees are all back there. But if one of those guys, if something happens to one of them, if something happens to a Bailey Scott or Dylan Stevens, you could see a Hardiman come onto a wing. So I'd be keeping an eye on him. Just keep on to watch this. I just don't see him being there round one. Buddy Orland has been named for Gold Coast. Obviously, we all had him. Well, a lot of people had him last year. Obviously, only played the 3 games for an average of 30. He's been named on the ground for Gold Coast. Whether he still can be named sub. It's obviously the sub can come from the best 23. Also from the squad of 23. But last night we saw Sam Wicks and the name escapes Jack Billings for Melbourne. Both were sub. They were both named on the bench. So if we see that again tonight for Carlton and Brisbane, if both the subs get named on the bench, then that might be a bit of a trend that coaches are doing, where they name the 18, then they'll still pick the sub from on the bench. There'll still be coaches that'll probably do a little bit different, but I guess if you're picking a premium mid-price, they're probably not likely to be the sub anyway. But Bodie Ulan, again, like I said with Gibcus, if Bodie Ulan can get a decent score against Richmond, he could be someone that we're considering. He's a little bit easier because you're saving that 39k or whatever it is from Gibcus. So, yeah, I think that he could be an option if he pops out a good score, but we've got to see how he goes. Now, this is a guy, Blake Howes, who should be locked into your teams. So it's obviously saying here he's only 4.65%. Obviously, I'm recording on the Thursday night. Tomorrow morning, he's going to be increased in ownership by a lot because he scored a 74. I think he's got to be a lock on your bench. He has to. His break-even's 22. He's got a 74. He's outscored that, obviously, by 52 points. His break-even is going to be probably in the negatives. Will be in the negatives heading into round one. If he goes and scores even a 40 or 50, he's going to go up 2 lots of price rise. So he could essentially be about 300k post round one, which will be really, really handy to have a 200k defender already be around that 300k mark. And you've already got some cash potentially in when he's got his buy in round 6. You'll have maybe potentially a couple 100k already to downgrade from him. So Howes, for me, has got to be locked on your bench because he's one of the guys that's locked on my bench. Ari Schoenmaker is another one I'm really keen on. This has probably got a bit to do with if he's named next week and how Gibcus and Bodie Ulan go. But we saw last week scored an 83, took 11 marks, has a nice kick on him as well. If he's named in the team for St Kilda round 1, I think he's probably going to be the best scorer of the remaining options that we've got. It's just whether there's the confidence that he can stay in the team long term. The good thing is, I think he's been training the VFL most of the pre-season, comes in for one game, looks really good. So maybe that impressed Ross Lyon, maybe gets regular games early. So he's a guy that I've got on my watch list at the moment to see if he's named next week. But he's definitely one that we should be considering. Toby Pink, another popular pick at 200k, over 25, nearly 26%. Sorry, I've got him in. Again, bit like Gibcus, Reed, these guys aren't going to be huge scorers, but if you are keen on him, I think he's got decent job security and should hopefully tick over and hopefully get a couple of 50s or 60s early to really kickstart that cash gen. So, yeah, Pink is a guy that you've got to keep an eye on. Jacob Ryan is obviously on the list here, but I just don't see him getting a game. He's obviously not playing this week, and I'm not sure he's going to get many games. Charlie Dean, another one that we've got to talk about. He's obviously playing for Collingwood tomorrow night, making his debut. Obviously, it's been a long time coming his debut, so he scored 63 and 38% in the practice game last week. So one guy that you've got to keep an eye on in this practice game. Again, if he pops out a 60 or something like that, he'd be a very, very popular option to put on the bench. Obviously, the trouble is Collingwood, such a hard team to crack into. I think it's Nathan Murphy and Jeremy Howe that aren't playing this week. So for me to pick Charlie Dean, it would have to be a pretty good score. It might even have to be 70 just because, okay, he might jump up. But, well, I guess it would depend because he's playing Friday night. If he scores well this week and plays next week and is named on the Friday, I'd be a lot more confident taking that jump on him. But if he's not named next week, obviously you can't start him. So, but yeah, just one to watch and one to see if he's named in teams. I keep forgetting he's playing Friday, so you can actually see if he's actually named and not the sub next week, depending on how he goes this week. Ethan Phillips is the other guy that we've got to talk about here before we move on to the mids. I've currently got him as my other defender. I think he's the most capable of these sort of key defenders that can be more consistent and hit more of those 60s. He scored 39 in half a game in the first practice game, scored, I think, in the 40s last week, but he gave away like 4 free kicks. So if, obviously, in another game where he's not giving all these free kicks, maybe he scores those 60. So I just have more faith that he can score quite well. He's 200k. He's 24 years of age as well. He's only been on this couple of weeks. They obviously need him this year, so I think he's got good job security. So for me, him and Blake Howes are my two favourites on the bench. Obviously, it's depending on how Charlie Dean, Bodie Uland and Josh Gibcus all go. But for me, it'd be those two would be my favourites. Moving on to the midfield rookies. Obviously, I'll touch on Harley Reid when we get to the forward line. Obviously, Colin McKerch has got to be a lock. It's just as simple as that. I know he only scored a 63 last week. I wouldn't be concerned about that, to be honest. It was just the game sort of didn't quite suit him in a way. I think he went forward. I sort of only really watched the first half, so I didn't catch much seeing enough. I'll probably go watch that again. But apparently he played a little bit more forward. I don't see that being a regular occurrence. I think that was just to maybe trial something there. I expect him to be playing behind the ball. He's got a very, very good left foot and good user of the ball, so I expect him to play behind the ball. And be a really good option for us. But we will talk about another rookie that potentially, if he's not good enough, put him on your bench. There's another rookie we'll talk about shortly that you could also put there, who I don't actually... I do have on my favourites. I didn't think I did. Zane Dersma showed some good signs last week. It's just hard when being I'll touch on him in the forwards just because he's a mid forward, so I'll leave that. I'll leave Watson, same with Lazaro. Riley Sanders is the next guy here, 285k. So he's over 55%. Even McKercher, I think, is about the same, tiny bit less. Yeah, nearly 55%. So these two guys have got to be locks. Sanders, the more of the lock out of the two. We saw last week he had 30 touches with not having many CBAs for the Dogs. So for me, he's got to be locked into all our sides and on our field. McRae will probably be back next week. Whether Caleb Daniels in the team, if he's playing midfield, we don't know. But I think Sanders is the fourth guy in there. I think he's going to be the first sort of guy that's rotated in there. I'm interested to see if he gets the first CBA, if they sort of give him that first CBA opportunity with a Bont and Libba maybe, or if it will be Treloar in there and Sanders will probably be the first guy rotated in. But for me, he's got a fantasy game about him. We know this. His junior numbers are fantastic. So for me, Sanders has got to be locked onto all left fields, and you've got to just pay the premium price for McKercher and Riley Sanders. They're probably the two must-have rookies of all the ones I'm going to talk about. Jeremy Sharp. Now, 284k, obviously, moved from Gold Coast. We've seen a couple of years ago, obviously, for the Gold Coast, score well in that patch towards the end of, was it 2021? I think it was, maybe 2022. One of the two. He had a good sort of last part to the year. It just depends. I think it's going to come down to how these other rookies go in opening round. If we get, we'll talk about him earlier, we'll talk about it later, but if a Bodie Uland goes big, if Cadman, Lohman, all these guys go really big in the preseason, maybe we've got to start these guys because they're going to get that accelerated cash gen early. Obviously, we'll talk about a couple of the other guys later on here, but Sharp is, for me, a pretty good option as your M9 and will be a good replacement for if you've got a round, like an early buy player to come onto the field for you and cover you for a week. And I think you'll make good cash. I just think it's probably looking likely he's the bench option. But he's not a necessity to have because of how potential Sydney rookie went tonight, so he could be your M9 instead. But Sharp, I think, is still a good option. I've currently got him on my bench as my M9 as well. Moving down the list to some more midfielders, Jake Rogers, I don't think is going to get much of an opportunity early for Gold Coast. He's more of a long-term prospect for them, not sort of the here and the now. Actually, what was Jeremy Sharp's ownership as well? So yeah, nearly 33%, so fairly high. Josh Sin. I just don't see getting games early. If there's some injury support, he might come in, but they like him. He will get games throughout the year, but they could be a sub, and he's not going to be a starting option for us. This is the guy I was talking about before. Matt Roberts looked awesome last night. Scored 91 points, playing off half back. 91, break-even 27. His break-even is going to be in the negatives next week, and there's going to be an argument, could you play him on field? And some people are going to say, do you go to a 3 rookie structure with McKercher, Sanders and Roberts? Do you go to Sanders and Roberts and bench McKercher? I couldn't be for benching McKercher. I think if you're going to put Roberts on the field, it's got to be in a 3 rookie mid-system. Personally, I'd prefer to start Roberts on the bench early. And if he pops another, let's say, 75, 80 plus, that could be where you might decide to, let's say, a Wines or a Crouch or someone, or hopefully we don't cop bullets, but if he did, or one of those Crouch or Wines or someone didn't do well, you could downgrade them, put Roberts on the field and maybe upgrade a a rookie in another line to maybe get another player on the field. That could be something you consider, but I'd probably prefer to start him at M10, potentially M9. Obviously, if you don't start Sharp and you start another rookie, maybe it is a Jai Clark as your other midfielder, who we will actually talk about next. So his ownership 16%. That will grow considerably overnight, and that will be, it should be close to 50% at least as we enter round one. Jai Clark, obviously, the other one I'm really keen on was Geelong's number one CBA attendee in their last practice game. Looked good that third quarter. He looked really good as well. I think he scored 68 points in the game, the full game last week. So for me, he's one that's a pretty easy lock onto my bench. He's currently my utility because I've got Sharp and Matt Roberts on there and Jai Clark. But again, if I need some cash and there's another rookie that pops like a Loam or Cadman and I wanted to downgrade and get some cash and put Jai Clark in the mids, he could be my M10. But this stage, currently my utility there. A lot of mid forwards, so we'll talk about those guys in there. So there's actually not too many sort of straight mid rookies. And I think, McKercher, Sanders are the locks. I think Roberts is a lock as well. They're the three locks. And then Sharp is also a really good option along with Jai Clark. And I think Jai Clark's also more of a lock than what Jeremy Sharp is. So they're the guys I like in the mids. So Rucks, there's only really two I could really pick. I think that the play is to get a Harry Barnett. Actually, I'll just get Barnett on the up on here. Just put him in the favourites just because he will be my R3. West Coast play the most Sunday games of any team. I think Calvin said on the Traders pod they play 9 of the first 15 rounds on Sunday. So I think he is a pretty easy R3. I'll put Livingston there because he could get a game early. I just think it's worth going for a Barnett because Livingston, if he plays, is going to score 20s and 30s. He's not going to make any cash because, the break-even's is it 22 for basement? Yeah, break-even 22. He's probably not going to get much more than that, to be honest. So, for me, I wouldn't be starting him. And Liam Reedy's another guy that could get a game early with Sean Darcy being injured, but similar to Livingston, I don't see him scoring much more than your 30s and 40s. And Jackson will be the number one ruck there, and Bailey Williams obviously for West Coast. So for me, I'd just be getting Harry Barnett and leaving it at that. So they're the rucks for me, so not much to talk about there. In the forward line, I thought I'd put Finlay Macrae here at the top. He's 310k, so he's not technically rookie price, but he's 10k more than the rookie price. What you're going to do is, so he's currently owned by, it's actually quite low now, and it's good because a lot of people got off. But if you do own him, I would be doing that. Getting him off your list. He's not in Collingwood's side for Saturday night. He's on the emergency list. And if he does come in, he just reeks of being the sub. I think he'll be the sub at some point in the next few weeks if they bring him in. So for me, you can't have him there unless you probably want to watch if he comes into Collingwood's team and goes really well, then that would be when you bring him in the week after. But you can't trust him. He's more of an upgrade target, if anything. But so we'll start off at the top. Harley Reid, again, very similar to Sanders and McKercher. Just got to lock him in. There's a reason that Sanders, McKercher and Harley Reid are the three guys on the thumbnail of the video because they're the three probably biggest locks of all of them. So, 65.5% owned. He's going to be playing off half-back and in the middle. I think he had the third most CBAs for West Coast last week, which is good to see. So if he gets that role, I think his scoring could be pretty good. Port Adelaide in Adelaide round one is a bit of a tricky fixture. I just think he's going to have a decent role. West Coast are going to want to feed him, obviously, with all the hype and everything. They're not going to want him to have many games where he's not getting much of the ball. So they're going to feed him at every opportunity, and he's going to score decent enough. You can expect 60 to 65, 70 most weeks. He will pop the odd 75, 80 plus score. He might have one or two scores sub 55, but I expect it to be very much between that 55 and 70 mark on most weeks. So for me, he would be a lock and probably going to be on all of our fields as well. So Dersma, who I was starting to speak about in the midfield, so he's owned by 35%, which is quite a high ownership. I think it's just more because he's a high draft pick. I don't think he's going to be a high scorer in North Melbourne's forward line. So for me, I would just be that we got so many forward rookies. We're going to be speaking about a few of them in a sec that are really good options. And for me, I would prefer those options over a Zane Dersma. But he's going to be a great player for North. He's got a real X factor about him. But yeah, for me, not a fantasy option. He's more going to be an impact player, and there'll be games where he does put up some 30s. So, and then if he was 200k, it'd be a bit different. You'd be paying for that job security. You can pop maybe a 60, 70 every now and again, but because he's an inflated price, I wouldn't be looking at starting him. Nick Watson, very similar. Same thing with Dersma. He's going to be playing in a team that's not going to be scoring huge points every week. Currently 14% owned. I wouldn't be paying for him. He's going to be quite a low score on most weeks. And I'd actually have a lot more hope in Dersma popping some 60s. I don't see Watson having many games being over 60 points, to be honest. Whereas Dersma, I could see a few games here and there. Maybe kicks 2 or 3 goals, has 10 to 15 touches, and gets that sort of that 60 score. Che Lazaro is going to be another one that's going to be quite relevant. So he's currently on by nearly 25%. It's probably going to continue to increase as we get closer. He's had back-to-back scores over 75 in the pre-season. He's essentially like that fourth midfielder for North. And with Simpkin going down, if Phillips isn't named, I expect Lazaro to get in even more of a bump, and even a Tom Power, who is obviously a value play we talked about in the other episode. I just think Lazaro's a good pick, and I think he's a decent option at F6. It's probably between him and one of the other guys we're going to be speaking about later on. But Lazaro, for me, is currently my F6. I just think he's got a decent role, and he's been in the system for a few years now, that I think with a mature body, I think we can expect some more consistency from him, because he's looked good in the preseason. So Lazaro, for me, is another one I like there. Reece McInnes, I don't believe he was named for Collingwood in their upcoming game, so I'd be crossing him off your list. I'm actually just checking on my phone now to make sure that he wasn't named, just so I do get that correct, because I don't believe he was. If I go forward line, Ash Johnson's there. Reece McInnes isn't even on the emergency list. So, for me, I'd be getting rid of him. So, actually, I'll do that now while I'm at it. So, you get rid of him. Caleb Windsor. So he's going to be an interesting one. So 282k, scored a 44 last night. Obviously not a huge score. Melbourne could have used him, I think, a lot more than what they did. I think he got burnt quite a number of times. And he scored a 45 last week with a couple of goals. So it was good that he didn't kick any goals, and he still got to a 44 in a game. The SCG wingers scoring can be very, very up and down. One winger can score really well, and another one might not. And it seemed to be Windsor just didn't score huge. I still like him as a pick. It's going to depend on a few of the options we're going to talk about sort of tomorrow night and Saturday, if they put a good score up from opening round. Because if they do, there is a world where you could start one of these other guys if they put up a good score and even save some cash. So for me, Windsor's not locked into my side. I still think he's a good option. I think his job security is pretty safe. Melbourne really like what they have got from Windsor. So for me, I'd be still keeping him. What was the ownership? I should have looked at there. Just over 30%. So for me, he's still a good option. Nate Caddy I don't think I saw him in any of the pre-season games, or he might have played the first pre-season game. I just didn't see really much of him. He's not going to be a huge scorer anyway, but I don't think he gets named round one. He's probably more an upgrade target later on in the year. Orazio Fantasia is one of these rookies we've got to keep an eye on tomorrow night. 269k, obviously we know he's been in the system for a while. He's only so cheap because of all the injuries he's had. A little bit like I think he's worked really hard in the off-season on his body. Again, if he puts up a 60-plus score, I'd almost be tempted to be going him over Windsor, because you're going to get that good cash boost straight off the bat, and then you're going to get another score. So Fantasia for me could be a nice option away from Windsor, but again, we've got to see how he goes tomorrow night. Again, very similar with a Kyle Lohman at 257k there. Still got Windsor there, but Lohman's been named on the bench. So it'll be a good watch to see if he is named the sub. I think Lyons is going to be the sub for Brisbane. Obviously, I've got no intel on that. That's just my complete guess. If Lohman's not the sub and puts up a good score, again, he could be someone that you pivot away from a Caleb Windsor. But again, it would have to be probably a 60 or a 70 plus from Lohman to really look at it, because I think Windsor's job security is a lot better than Lohman. Like, Lohman looks like probably the sort of those guys that sort of anywhere from the 19th to the 23rd player. You obviously got Devon Robertson, Connor McKenna, who should be back. I don't know how long Connor McKenna's out for, but Devon Robertson should be back next week or the week after. So Lohman's going to play pretty well to keep his spot. Obviously, Brisbane's a hard team to crack into. So for me, I'd be keeping a watch on Lohman. Ollie Dempsey played pretty well in Geelong's practice games. It depends if he's there. I just don't think he'd be a high scorer. So for me, I probably wouldn't be picking him. I don't see him being a consistent scorer. However, the next guy I would be locking onto your benches, Darcy Wilson, 249k, over 31% now, and that's going to continue to rise. Scored a 97 against North. I don't think we can expect 90s every week, and if we do get some 90s early in the season, he's going to be a lock on our fields, because apparently he's the best runner at the club for St Kilda, which is saying something when they've got so many good runners at the club. And if he's coming in his first pre-season, he's already the best runner. That's saying something. And yeah, I think he's going to be there round one and be a lock for us at least on your bench, potentially F6 as an option there. So yeah, for me, I really like Darcy Wilson. Should be locked into your sides as long as he's named next week. But I think he will be named. So yeah, I'd be locking him in. Lockie McNeil, unfortunately, just reeks a little bit of sub as well. So I probably wouldn't be looking at him, even though he is a guy that probably could be quite consistently scoring over 50. But I just think he'll be sub a few weeks as well. He's right on the fringe, so I wouldn't be looking at him. Aaron Cadman is one I'll be looking at. Obviously, it looks like he's got this sort of backup ruck role, which is really good for it. It gets him more involved in the game. Obviously, you saw last year, he sort of only played the 12 games, obviously only an average of 24.5. That's why he's so cheap again this year. With this backup ruck role, you get a couple of hit outs. He'll get some disposals around the ground. Hopefully, can kick a couple of goals a game and be a guy that goes 55, 60 and be a decent option for us. So again, big watch. But if he scores a 60 plus, 65 plus, I'll probably pivot from a Windsor to him just because you're saving yourself 61k and you're going to get a better cash gen from a Cadman early on than what you would from a Windsor. But again, very, very much dependent on how he goes to Saturday night against Collingwood. Sean Manor, one to keep an eye on. I think he is quite popular still. He's 35, just over 35%. I don't know if he plays round one. He had an impact coming on last week in the second half and looked quite good. I think he scored 37 in the half and I think he impressed the Geelong coach. It just depends if he's there in the opening round. Potentially could put him in there over an Ollie Dempsey. And if he is there, it could be a good option that you start with at 200k because we've seen that he can score, and I think we've known that he obviously was huge in the VFL Grand Final last year. I think got best on ground in that as well. So yeah, for me, Manners are definitely a watch to see if he gets named next week, and if a Cadman, Loman, and Fantasia don't really impress, and then Harvey Thomas will speak about in a set. If they don't impress, then maybe you could go Windsor to a Manor if Manners named, but Windsor's got the better job security, so that's probably one thing to note there as well. Cooper Simpson could be there for Freo round one. Again, he's a guy that, for me, could be the starting sub, could be subbed out. He's really on the fringe, so I probably wouldn't go there. I'd prefer other options. And then Manor probably as well is a little bit of a sub risk. That's what makes it a little bit tricky with Manor and also Cooper Simpson. Harvey Thomas, I believe he's been actually named on the ground. I'll quickly have a look at that, but 200k mid-forward, he's not going to be a huge scorer for GWS, but again, if he puts up a decent score in round one, then he could be someone we look at. So he has been named to, he is on the bench. So I just think McMullen will be the sub of the guys that are on the bench, but something to watch to see if Harvey Thomas is named the sub or not. But if he's not, puts up a good score, he'd be someone I would definitely be looking at and considering because he is basement. I'll put Locke Rawlinson there. If he's named, I just felt there are better options. A little bit with the other guys here, like Hugo Garcia. I like these other guys that are either going to be playing this in opening round or just other guys that are going to be named next week. Bigoa Nguyen will get defender status. I guess that could be something if you're looking at that. But 200k is not going to be a huge scorer, so I just wouldn't worry about it. A bit the same with Harvey Gallagher. I don't think he's going to be there for the Dogs next week. Seth Campbell is a guy that, again, another one of these opening round rookies to have a look at. If he scores well, you can start him. I just don't think... honestly, I don't know much about him. I really don't. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. I don't know if is he a small forward? He probably is a smaller forward. So for me, I don't know how he's going to go. I'm just having a look at his height because I honestly don't know anything about him. So Seth Campbell... hang on, just get rid of that. The screen is stuffing out. So Richmond, okay, this will be a better view. So Seth Campbell, 182 centimetres. Yeah, he was sort of, smaller to maybe, smaller sort of forward there. Even though 182 centimetres isn't too small. Again, just see how he goes in opening round on Saturday night. Darcy Jones wasn't named, just a guy to keep an eye on as a downgrade target because Giants have got some big raps on him. Just had tonsillitis last week, which sucks for him because if he would have played last week, might have played well and potentially got that spot maybe over a Harvey Thomas or something, but Darcy Jones won't be there, so more of an upgrade target. Chris Burgess is one to consider because Dilthorpe being out for, potentially 3 months or at least 3 months, I think is what they were saying. So he's out for a while with a meniscus injury. So Burgess will get the first crack, I'd believe, there. They recruited him for this exact reason, as cover for sort of forward and back lines, because obviously he can play at both ends of the ground. But Burgess will have that backup ruck role. So I don't mind the Burgess play. At 200k, I'd much rather him over the likes of your Cooper Simpsons, even a Sean. I'd almost rather him over Sean Manor, to be honest. A few of these guys here that was just sort of shaky with the job security. Burgess isn't going to be the sub. They're not going to put him as a sub. He's going to play that backup ruck role, even though Taylor Walker will take a lot of the forward 50 ruck stoppages. Burgess will be the relieving guy, might get a handful of CBAs throughout the game. But for me, he could be that guy if all the other rookies fail and you need the extra 80k from a Windsor, and Burgess could be your man. So Burgess, I'm definitely got firmly on my list. Again, Tony McMullen, I anticipate him being the sub, so I don't think he'll be an option. But again, if he's not sub, puts up a good score, keep an eye on him. Bailey Laurie was subbed out on a 26, I think it was, so that unfortunately ruled him out for our squads to start with there. If he plays next week, puts up a 60 or 70, I don't think he's going to start next week. He might be the sub next week, but if he plays, puts up a good score, he's an upgrade target. But yeah, I wouldn't be starting with him. And Patrick Voss could get that spot with Sean Darcy out. Jackson going to the obviously the main ruck. Does Patrick Voss become that guy that comes in? Tracy becomes the pinch hitting ruckman. So yeah, for me, I think my favourites there, obviously, Harley Reid, Lazar, I think, and Darcy Wilson, I think, are the three locks. And it's probably that fourth guy is probably between, for me, it's probably Windsor, Cadman, Lohman, Fantasia. Obviously, all those guys, Cadman, Fantasia, Lohman, all got the asterisks of how they got a score this week. Harvey Thomas as well, Campbell and McMullen have got to be in there. But I think my next favourite would be a Chris Burgess. I think if you're looking to save cash and none of the other guys really impress, I think that Burgess could be the guy. Because again, Burgess got a lower break even. Gold Coast revenge game. If he puts up a solid score next week, then he could be a guy that kickstarts his cash gen pretty quickly. So I don't mind Chris Burgess as a play there as well. So yeah, they're the rookies. That's all the rookies. If there was any I forgot, leave them in the comments below. I don't think I forgot any, but if I did, let me know in the comments. And yeah, let me know what you guys. Yeah, pretty much. I literally lost my train of thought then. But anyway, that'll be the end of the video. If you did enjoy the video, please smash a like on the video. Again, if similar to the other videos, if we could get 100 likes on this video, that'd be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, all your support is very much appreciated. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are closing in. I think we're about 440 or so away from time recording from 2,000. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. We've got a good event on Monday night. VAMS, obviously Fantasy Nut that you guys know on Twitter, and DT Bindi, along with potentially DT Lemon. Us four, we are doing a live Q&A, so that'll be good. Post opening round, get to answer all your questions. So make sure you tune into the live stream for that. That'll be 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, which will be 6 p.m. for everyone in Perth there. Bit of a live stream, so make sure you guys tune into that as well. Let me know in the comments below who your must-have rookies are, who are you really keen on, who are you keen to watch, who are you fading. Let me know your thoughts on all the rookies below, along with any other questions regarding your starting teams. Always happy to answer those. And then also, final thing, bit of a competition that we'll be running. So with that live stream that we'll be doing on Monday night, because obviously AFL Fantasy Fanatics are on obviously Spotify and Apple, but you can only do it on Apple. So if you're an Apple user, we're going to be picking the best 2 reviews on there. So leave your reviews at AFL Fantasy Fanatics, and 5 stars as well would be very much appreciated. But leave your reviews, and the 2 best reviews, all 4 of us, potentially all 3 of us at least. If you send me your team, we'll go through your team and sort of rate it and see what we may do with your team. So make sure you leave your reviews there for us, and 5 stars and everything like that, and we'll get to doing all that as well. Also, don't forget to follow @BalesDT on TikTok to get me to 1,000 followers so we can stream on there. But beautiful. Next time I catch you will be on Sunday night with Tim and the Ball Boys for another AFL Fantasy Fanatics episode of the podcast. So looking forward to that chat, and we'll be able to dissect all the other 3 games in the opening round. But until the next video, catch you guys then. So I'm out. Cheers.